Hello, my name's Gary Ford, Managing Director of Tiger Hobbies Limited. I'm here today to do a short video about, I think, the best value 1/72nd scale Sherman model you can buy. And this is the Hella M4. Please do not get confused with the very early Airfix model M4 Sherman. This from Hella is a much newer tooling, and as you can see below, it's got wonderful detail. It also comes with a number of parts. As you can see down here, you've got all the different forms of arches, different forms of what you call final drive covers, and to make it a really wonderful model. And literally, you can buy this at Tiger Hobbies at www.tigerhobbies.co.uk for just $10.99 with $11.49 for a little gift set, some paint, glues and brushes. What I'm now going to show you is an even greater value model that we do within this range, and that is the D-Day or Omaha set. Let me just bring this forward to you, 2 seconds. As you can see now, we've brought along the second model to show you. This is the Omaha or Overlord set. Again, just $19.99, and as you can clearly see, you've got the LVCP, Landing Craft Vehicle Personnel. You've got a platoon of about 30 or 28 American GIs, just here, and here you've got a model of a Sherman M4A1. And again, just like the earlier Ella model, this can be purchased at www.tigerhobbies.co.uk at just $19.99. But for those interested in Shermans and all the different variants, I'm going to show you another model brand that we stock at Tiger Hobbies, and that is the Rubicon Wargame scale, this time in 1/56. But it really does give you a good idea of the different variations within the Sherman mark. So let's bring the first model to show you. So the first Shermans literally off the production line, once they started producing the Shermans, is the M4 Sherman. Now down at Bovington Tank Museum, they've got a very early Sherman called Michael, named after, I think, the British purchasing manager. Now that's not an M4A1, it's just literally just an M4 Sherman. But before they started to actually designate the actual Shermans. But the first Shermans to go into production was the M4, and it had a cast hull, as you can see here, a full cast hull, and I've got the model cast hulls from the kit itself to show you. And you can see this is a fully cast hull. There's no like welded seams on it or anything like that. But this was going to be basically the production of the Sherman, and it was also it was powered by a Continental aircraft engine. And a very good tank. But what they found, only 1 or 2 factories had got such massive casting machines to cast the hulls. So what they needed was a simplified version to go into production. So basically, they didn't change the Sherman itself, so it was going to be powered by the same Continental engine. It would have the same turret with a 75mm gun and the same suspension with the HVSS suspension, which stands for Vertical Volute Suspension System. So let's have a look at that one. And here we see, we've got a M4 Sherman, also the Firefly 1C, and this would be designated by the British as Sherman number 1 or Sherman 1. And as you can see, the model kit comes with, this time, 2 versions of that tank. And you'll notice the first version here has got the tiny arches and the sloped armour around about 57 degrees. And the other one has got sloped, I think, 47 degrees, but much bigger hatches. Because one of the problems they found with the early Shermans, they find that that some of the crews couldn't get out. But this later hull, which was introduced right across the Sherman range, as I will tell you later, including the M4 and the M4A2, M4A3, but not the M4A4. And again, I'll explain a little later why that was the case. But as you can see here, the 2 arches. I'm just saying, you can just start to see at the camera the different handles of the frontal glacier plate of the Sherman. Now that had the same, as I said, the same Continental engine. So here we've got now is the next Sherman in the production variant, and this is the Sherman M4A2. Again, this was produced all at the same time. There was not one replacing the other. But the difference between this Sherman, the M4A2, is powered by a diesel engine. They weren't particularly well liked by the Americans. A lot of these went to the British and the Russians. But as you can see, again, produced with the same variants of hulls. So this is the early hull, and this is the later hull. Again, these kits you can build both the earlier and late versions. See the smaller hatches and the large hatches. Again, showing that both these hulls were placed on this production Sherman. So let's look at the next Sherman. Now this is the M4A3. Now this particular Sherman is a slightly later version, but it does show the particular variants of this particular Sherman. So where we showed earlier, that earlier upper hull type with the smaller hatches, these were produced with that hull. But by late 1943, as I said, they went to the later hull with the larger hatches. And not only that, but this particular Sherman has got the what you call the HVSS suspension. So instead of the vertical volute suspension system, as you can see, you can just about see it, this has got the HVSS suspension, which is the horizontal volute suspension system, and also a larger turret called the T23 mounting a 76mm gun. And again, this new suspension system was put on the M4A1, the M4A2 and the M4A3. And the final version we're going to look at of the general run of Sherman production is the M4A4. Here we've got the M4A4. Now this particular model, so the first one had the M4 and M4A1 had the Continental engines, the M4A2 had the diesel engines, and the M4A3, which I forgot to mention, had the Ford V8 engine. This one had got a Chrysler multi-bank engine, literally 5 engines or 4 engines literally strapped together. But it resulted in a much or slightly longer hull, and I'll just get one of the other hulls to show you. This, so the above in my hand is the M4, and you can see as I line it up on the glacier plate, you see the back end does actually stick out, and that was because it required this larger engine bay. Again, not particularly popular with the Americans because the Chrysler engine kept failing in its long run reliability tests, and by the time they got it sorted, the Americans weren't interested in. So it was also the first version of the Sherman to stop production. So by the back end of 1943, this M4A4 was taken out of production. The British at the time, the back end of 43, early 44, were looking for a version of this Sherman to convert to the hard-hitting 17-pounder. And so the Americans said, yeah, we've got loads of these spare, we don't want them. So this is why this particular version was chosen. Well, certainly one of the reasons. And majority of the production, the M4A4, either went to Britain, some to Russia, some to Canada, and some to China. And very, very few, if any, were used by United States forces. So that's the general look at the Sherman in production. So let's recap. The M4A1, the first version of the Sherman with a Continental engine. The M4, a simplified version of the Sherman. And the last thing about the M4, I'm just going to bring in basic M4, is you can see, if you can just see by the camera, just round here where the back deck is, there's this little hatch cover, and round here there's like a raised lip that runs round. The M4, pure M4, is the only one of the Shermans to have this raised lip at the rear of the turret. So if you see the raised lip on a turret, raised lip on the engine deck, that means it's an M4 Sherman, no other variant. Also, the M4A1 also has that raised lip again. So it's the two first Shermans, M4 and M4A1, have those raised variants. The M4A2, to recap again, has got the diesel engine. The M4A3 has got the Ford V8 engine. And the M4A4 has got the Chrysler multibag engine. There are two variants I want to show you now from Rubicon. This is the M4 composite. So at some point in the Sherman's production, they're deciding they needed to increase production. So what they basically took, if you can see this particular one, it's got the front end of the fully cast hull of the M4A1 with the back end of the welded hull of the M4. Again, you can see this raised lip around. So M4, M4A1 and M4 composite have got this raised lip on the back deck. And also this went to the British as the Sherman Firefly 1C Hybrid. And again, just to prove a point, here's a model of a Sherman M4A1 76W. Now, this is basically the first production Sherman with the VVSS suspension, vertical volute suspension system. But as you can see, it's got the larger T23 turret with the 76mm gun, the American equivalent of the 17-pounder. Wasn't as hard hitting as the 17-pounder, but was much accurate at longer ranges. Basically, the 17-pounder, in its base configuration, was not much use after about 800 metres. This was accurate out up to, after testing at the Aberdeen Proving Grounds, accurate to 2,000 metres. Maybe not as hard as hitting as the 17-pounder, but more accurate. And finally, I'll just leave this on the table before we cover the final part. As the war ended, the Americans wanted to standardise as many Shermans as possible. And their favourite Sherman, the one they wouldn't really let anybody else have in decent numbers, was the M4A3 with the Ford V8 engine. But they wanted M4A3s with the latest suspensions and latest turrets. So they took all the Shermans back in storage, back in the USA, and stripped off the later HVSS suspension system and T23 turrets off M4A1s, M4A2s, and any of the Sherman had these assets, and put them on any remaining early versions of the M4A3. So basically, the tank you see in the film Fury, which is commonly known as an M4A3E8, Easy 8 for the HVSS suspension, but its actual designation is M4A3 in brackets 76 close brackets W. W stands for wet stowage. It's the wet stowage. As they increase that or lessen the handle of the frontal glacier, it made more room in the Sherman. Everything could kind of move forward as far as the driver and co-driver's position. Also, you could have more room at the bottom of the tank. So what they did, under the turret ring, they put in stowage so the 76mm rounds could lay at an handle in bins in water. So one of the reasons the Sherman got a bad reputation, such as the Tommy cooker or the Ronson, because it lit first time, and it wasn't because it got petrol engine, it's because how the ammunition was stored in the turret and further up in the hull. By stowing the ammunition much further down and in water, that stopped this, Sherman's bursting into flames. But this later Sherman, as we like to know, the Fury tank, remained in US service actually with National Guard units into the late 1950s. And actually, I think Paraguay were the last unit to get, military to get rid of this Sherman, the later version, in as late as 2018. So, thank you very much for listening to this short video about the M4 Shermans and taking a look at our Ella models and the Rubicon models. As you can see, they come with lots of parts to build all the different variants of Shermans, around about 20 to 24.99 in 156 scale, which is absolutely the scale for what we call skirmish wargaming or platoon size wargaming. Once again, thank you very much for listening to this video.